welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Fried, and I'm joined, as always, by my man, Mike Luciano. Mike, today has been a wild day in Jetsland. It's not even March yet, and we have had, I would say, maybe the busiest day of the entire offseason so far, from all the Mecole Hardman stuff to potential accusations of leaking a playbook to the report card to Laken Tomlinson getting released. It has been a crazy few days. We're going to break it all down. Talk to me. How you feeling, Mike?
Well, that's how I'm feeling. Like, it's just, I want to come in and talk all about the off season and how to change things and improvements that could be made in football stuff. And we got to sit here and do like gossip and drama. And this guy said this on a podcast. Here we are. But again, Mecole Hardman won't shut his freaking yapper no matter what happens. We're going to dive into this because I got a lot to say. Very few of it positive because Mecole just went ahead and kind of went scorched earth on a team and did not. I'll get into this more, but the lack of accountability and introspectiveness in this man is shocking. It's really shocking.
That's how you really feel, Mike.
Well, we'll get into it. It just, oh boy. So as always, you can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you get your podcast. That's where we are. YouTube and TikTok at the Jet Press for both of them. This is a tough one because Mecole Hardman went on a podcast, thought it was going to be pretty anonymous.
Went on Ryan Clark's the Pivot podcast. That's the name of it. So credit to Ryan Clark for this.
Right. I'm like, this is gonna be freaking harmless. And then he comes out and just reads the Jets the Riot Act. I'll kind of give you like a chronological kind of bullet by bullet what he said, because he did touch on a lot, especially about the Jets in this interview. The first thing that this disqualified immediately everything else the other said. Because he actually made some valid points about the Jets and their culture and all that. Immediately, he was asked to return punts against Kansas City. He refused because he claimed he was misled by special teams coach Brant Boyer, who, by the way, everybody loves. Weird guy to have a beef with Brant Boyer. If you pissed him off, you've really done – something's going amiss if that's happened. And then Hardman said he was dealing with his own hyperextended pinky. It made it tough to catch, but he said it wasn't really communicated well. And then he said, I'm not catching for that, man. This is at a point in week 4 when he had done nothing. All year long. He admitted he was checked out and possibly tampered because he admitted 2 weeks before he got traded that he was talking to Mahomes and Brett Veach, the GM of the Kansas City Chiefs, saying, come get me, which is illegal. You can't do that. And the one thing I'll give him is he did say he was misled about his role. He thought he was going to have an expanded role. That was the Jets' own words. He barely played. All right, fine. There you go, Mecole Hardman. He was also pissed about the lack of accountability, specifically with Nathaniel Hackett, but I guess tangentially with Robert Saleh too, since this is his operation. He goes out and he says that there's no offensive coaching staff and no standard there because once Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, it's just like, we'll figure it out. It's Aaron's show. Let Aaron do what Aaron does. And then he gets hurt. Complete chaos on fire. That gif of Community where Donald Glover comes back in with the pizza and just everything's on fire. Like that's what he said the offense was.
That's the best.
Then, as we continue to chronologue this beef here, to use the internet lingo, Thomas Morstead, Jets Twitter favorite, great punter, friend of the show multiple times, says kind of downloads exactly what I was saying and kind of puts it out there going, be careful about getting information from disgruntled former employees getting beat out by a rookie free agent after being guaranteed millions of dollars is tough to deal with. That's, of course, Xavier Gipson, who was getting time over Hardman. Entitlement is a killer of opportunity. You have to earn it every year. Hardman, of course, then responds because this dude just can't freaking keep his mouth shut no matter what. And Hardman basically says, I love you, OG, but that's not really what happened. I'm not really disgruntled, which is something that you definitely say after you've done 3 podcast interviews in 2 weeks, almost exclusively talking about how you don't like the Jets instead of winning the Super Bowl with the Chiefs. So he won and got what he wanted. He's still pissed. So, you got anything to say about that, Justin?
I do. So, look, I try to look at both sides of everything with this stuff, right? And I know it's going to make some Jets fans mad because I'm not going to come on here and be like, Mecole Hardman sucks. He's the worst person ever.
I might, so get ready for that later.
Oh, I know. I heard you talking about it before the show, and I'm like, this is going to be great. I understand where Mecole Hardman is coming from in with what he's saying. I don't think he's handled it perfectly. I don't think he's handled it the best way possible. I will say, to start in his defense, it's not like he's unprompted just bringing up the Jets. He's been specifically asked about what happened with the Jets, and then he answered what happened with the Jets. He was asked on Ryan Clark's podcast, hey, what the hell happened in New York? Why didn't it work out? What went down there? From his perspective, he explained what went down. It seems like he has major beef with Brant Boyer, with just Jet special teams coach Brant Boyer. Seems to stem from a situation in the summer where Hardman, this is by his admission. So this is Hardman's account of it. This is his side of the story. Hardman was struggling with catching punts in the summer because he had an injured finger. Instead of Brant Boyer, taking that into account or asking him about it, Hardman tried to tell him, but Boyer just chewed him out in front of the entire team, and that was that. Hardman also felt that he was misled. There were reports at the time when the Jets signed Mecole Hardman that they promised him an expanded role. Of course, this is a player who had played over 50% of snaps the previous season on the defending Super Bowl champs. So an expanded role, you figured, would mean a pretty sizable role in the Jets offense. That doesn't mean he was guaranteed that. That doesn't mean he had a right to that role, but that's what he was told when he signed. Obviously, plans changed. Rodgers going down already altered those plans, but even before that happened, Xavier Gipson made waves in the summer, and the Jets really liked Xavier Gipson. Brant Boyer seemed to really like Xavier Gipson, which is essentially what gave him the starting punt return job over Mecole Hardman. Hardman felt that, hey, he's coming from a winning organization. This is how they did things in Kansas City. This is how it worked there, and they won Super Bowls there. He's not happy that it was done differently with the Jets, and he feels that he was misled and mistreated, essentially. What's true? I don't know, man. There's two sides to every story. I understand where Hardman's coming from. I think where he definitely messed up and probably should not have done what he did was when the Jets approached him ahead of the Chiefs game in week 4. Xavier Gipson hurt his ankle on Wednesday and was ruled out. I forget when they officially ruled him out, but he was not able to play in that game, I believe. And apparently, according to Mecole Hardman, he would have liked that the Jets approached him earlier in the week and said, hey, you are going to be the punt returner this week because Gipson might not play. Just asking you, or just telling you that this is the plan. Instead, Hardman was not happy that the Jets, or specifically Boyer, came to Hardman. He said he was already in pads on the field right before the game. So moments before the game, they come out and tell him, hey, you're going to be a punt returner. He didn't like that. But instead of just, going through with it, and I hate to use the word doing your job, right? But doing his job, instead of doing that.
The job they're paying you millions of dollars to do.
Instead of doing that.
Irrespective of what the coaches think of you, you're still on, you still have a responsibility to at least play.
Yes.
And I don't want to sound like some old boomer here, guys are getting too entitled and stuff like that. But call me crazy, when you sign a guy and pay him money to play football, that's what you expect.
Correct. You're absolutely correct. I completely agree. I have no issues with what you're saying. He told Brant Boyer no. He said that he's not going to, specifically did not want to catch punts for him. He did not like Brant Boyer. He had major beef with Brant Boyer. Brant Boyer, of course, one of the most respected coaches on the Jets staff. He's survived 3 different regimes. That said, he's a notorious hothead. So I can see some people not meshing well with him. But ultimately, if everyone loving this coach, if he's well respected and you have an issue with him, it's probably more on the player than it is the coach in that situation. So he says no. He says he's not going to return punts. Robert Saleh tried to go over to him and convince him. But by Hardman's admission, he had already checked out by that point. And that's when he said what he said about, hey, I already talked with Pat. I already talked to Mahomes and Veach about going back to Kansas City. I was checked out. That's tampering, buddy. That's tampering. So he later clarified, mind you, on Twitter, I think it was last night.
Backtracked,
clarified, whatever you want to say, that he didn't actually talk to Veach and Mahomes before he was traded and that the Jets handled things. That's the exact opposite of what he said on the podcast.
You know that thing I'm on video saying? Yeah, didn't mean it. I meant everything else, though. Everything else I meant, but this one particular thing, that could get me in trouble. I didn't mean that.
Exactly. And that's what he's trying to say there. What happened? I don't know. I understand from Hardman's perspective why he felt like he was misled and why someone who came from a winning organization, who you pointed this out to me earlier today, Mike, too, he's used to winning. He came from a winning program at Georgia, won with the Chiefs. He is used to winning. Not that the Jets were losing per se when he was on them. They were 3-3, but I don't think he particularly liked the way that the organization was run. And specifically, I think his comments about the offensive coaching staff are valid. Like, I think those are completely valid, and I have no issues with what he said there. Obviously, it sucks that Aaron Rodgers went down, but it didn't take Mecole Hardman saying it for anybody to know that the Jets put their eggs in the Rodgers basket and leaned on him too heavily, and that once Rodgers went down, there really wasn't an adult in the offensive coaching staff room, and that is not shocking to me at all. That is something that I've believed was true, and that has already been out there. So Hardman saying that doesn't change anything to me. The Morstead stuff's crazy. I mean, shout out Thomas Morstead. I think today would be the funniest possible day for the Jets to re-sign Thomas Morstead, which they obviously should. That would be amazing if they were just like, we're extending Thomas Morstead today. It'd be great. But shout out to him. I did not think he would be the guy to speak up and essentially call out Mecole Hardman, but he did. Before we get into any of the stuff with the potential playbook leaks, Mike, do you have anything else to say about Hardman in this situation?
I have three things, and I'll let you choose the order of what they could be. They're the 3 A's. Are you ready for them? That pissed me off about Mecole Hardman.
Sure, AAA, not the car thing. The
arrogance, the accountability or lack thereof, and the apathy. Which one should I go into first?
I mean, go arrogance. Arrogance feels like the meanest, so go arrogance.
The arrogance of this man, who basically at Georgia, like his last 2 years, which is when he played, he lost 5 games. And then in the NFL with 5 years with the Chiefs, he's gone Super Bowl loss, AFC Championship overtime loss, Super Bowl. Encounters the not most minor ever resistance, but for the first time in his career, things aren't going perfectly. You don't have a loaded program. You don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. You have Aaron Rodgers, but you didn't because he's out. So you didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback. The teams are struggling. They need you to step up, Mecole Hardman, which is what you thought you would do when you left the Chiefs, because that's why you left, because they weren't going to pay you. So the Jets finally paid you. And then you just quit. You went, nah, man, I can't do it. My pinky, it hurts so bad. I can't catch a punt. It hurts. Dwayne Brown put his freaking arm in a sling and played left tackle at 38. Can't catch a punt with a bad finger. Come on. So the apathy, that pisses me off, because whatever he may have said, everything he said could have been correct. Robert Saleh could have been clueless. Nathaniel Hackett could have just been like that scene in Austin Powers when he gets the truck stuck in the hallway and he's just like backing up and going for, like, that could have been him for the entire week of game prep. He could have been totally right about all that. The minute you say, I don't want to catch punts for the special teams coach, I just don't want to do my job that you're contracted to do, that you're in the wrong. You can't do that. Guys it's one thing to do your job poorly, and it's one thing to do your job wrong, or maybe you're coached wrong or you're not good enough, but it's another thing to refuse to do your job. Like, that's weak. It's one thing to try and fail, but to not try because your feelings are hurt pretty much. Like, I really have a problem with that. And then finally, the lack of accountability, because I have people in my family like this. I know everybody knows people like this. If you just listen to Mecole Hardman, you think like everybody's out to get him. Like everybody in the Jets, except for Aaron Rodgers, he liked. Like, outside of that, everybody was conspiring to like piss him off and upset him. They promised you an expanded role and then had their number 2 receiver, Corey Davis, retired. You should have been immediately put in as the number 3 wide receiver. Now, was Randall Cobb put in ahead of him? Maybe. That could have, all right, maybe you have some beef with that. But you know what? If you were really playing really well and really practicing really well, you don't think at some point, with the offense being as bad as it was, that Robert Saleh, who's Mr. We got to get our best guys on the field all the time, you don't think he would have said, maybe make Hardman the wide receiver 3? You know, maybe let's go with the guy we paid money for and has won a couple Super Bowls instead of an undrafted rookie out of Stephen F. Austin who has a very limited player profile and is not as fast as Mecole Hardman, and that's what we want to be, a fast guy. You can't even be the fast guy. Like the fact there's no inward reflection. Like, I get, maybe it's, again, going back to arrogance because he went back, he got what he wanted, and then he won the Super Bowl anyway. So he must just think he's amazing. But, like, on top of that, to think that there's a difference between being great and having just a proximity to greatness. Like there's a difference between establishing a winning culture and just being in it. Like when you think of the Chiefs dynasty, like how many players do you come back before we get to Mecole Hardman? What is he, like 20th on the list? Probably in terms of culture setting importance. Like the fact that he's this now apparently self-appointed authority on how to build a winning team, when sometimes it's just as simple as have Patrick Mahomes or don't have Aaron Rodgers get hurt. That's the problem I have. That's one of the problems I have with Hardman. It's because like there's no, like in his mind, nothing's his fault. Nothing's his fault. I did everything right and I got screwed. You may have gotten screwed in some areas, but you got to just say, you know what? I could have handled that better. If he came out after the Brant Boyer thing and he said, you know what? I was upset. I probably shouldn't have done that, but everything worked out for both sides. Nobody's mad at him. People probably supporting him because he's repping the coaching staff. Instead, he said it like, well, anybody would do it in that situation. No, that's not how things work. Mecole, since you're in year 5 or 6 in the league, apparently you don't know how things work. That's how things work. Gee whiz.
Well done. That was I commend you. That was one of the better rants we've had in a while. That was really good.
It's just he like again, like he thinks he just like shit's gold and that he invented football. He may be a nice guy. Like I don't think anybody said he's like a bad person, but like the fact he can't admit he did anything wrong, that 0% of the failure with the Jets is his fault. Even if you're a Mecole Hardman supporter, you have to at least admit that there's something he probably could have done better to earn playing time. Unless the staff is so stupid that he could have been playing at like 1,000-yard level and they just said, well, we're going to play Randall Cobb ahead of him. Unless they're that brain dead and just leaking gray matter out of their ears, which I don't think they are, you have to take some accountability.
We sure about Nathaniel Hackett? Are we sure?
I at least think Saleh watching his offense do that again would be like, all right, maybe let's try him if something wasn't working.
Hardman did add that specifically he was talking about the offensive coaching staff. He said that there was no standard with the offensive coaching staff, but that the defense was a different story. So he didn't have anything bad to say about Robert Saleh, at least that he vocalized. It sounded like he said that the defense was well run, that they had a standard, they were disciplined, but that the offense was a complete mess and disaster.
Hold on a second. Did also Jerry on Twitter. I'm so happy MH, Mecole Hardman, and Deion Dawkins teabagging the crap out of the Jets. They're full of pretenders. Why are you watching this show? What, seriously? It's 3:00 on a Wednesday. Shouldn't you be at work?
Yeah, I mean, look, man, Jerry, I'm not super high on the Jets at the moment either, so I'm not even going to push back too strongly. But I just think it's fun. Like I think the Deion Dawkins stuff is fun. I thought we were going to talk about that until
I did too, because I had some things to say about Deion Dawkins too.
Right. You're right. Now the Dawkins stuff almost feels like a relic of a few days ago.
The Dawkins stuff at least feels just like regular, like division rivals don't like each other stuff.
Yes, I agree. The Dawkins stuff is fun to me. I have no issue with Deion Dawkins saying what he said, just like I have no issue with Michael Clemens provoking the Bills because it's division rivalry stuff. Let them have fun. I mean, I who cares, man? The Hardman thing, yeah. What was I saying about the standard? And then Hardman did also add that he was like, I fully understand like that Garrett Wilson is the guy you want to build the offense around, but he implied and insinuated that he thought he was better than every other wide receiver on the roster that was not Garrett Wilson, which there's an argument to be made that's true. That's not a good thing. But there's an actual argument. I think Lazard should be better than Hardman, obviously. And, Gibson, I don't know if Hardman would have done what Gibson did in his role, if he would have done more. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, look, I don't have any ill will towards Mecole Hardman. I think that he sees it as, I don't think he sees it as necessarily he's like the best player in the world. I think he sees it as he came from an organization that he believed was doing things the right way, was doing things the way that produces results, that wins games, right? Obviously, they won 3 Super Bowls now during his time there. So he comes from that organization to the Jets, sees them doing things differently, and his immediate thought is, this is different, and as a result, it's worse because I know what it takes to win because of the organization I come from. Is that right or wrong?
What it takes to have Patrick Mahomes. That's what it takes to win.
Sure, but I don't think that anyone's going to sit here and say that the Jets coaching staff has earned the same level of respect that the Chiefs coaching staff has. Not talking Matt Nagy here, but talking Andy Reid. Like I think we can very clearly say, and obviously Andy Reid it's been very much helped that he's had Patrick Mahomes. Absolutely. Obviously, his entire career with the Chiefs after Alex Smith has been helped because he has Patrick Mahomes. But I think that there's something to be said about what Hardman is saying about the lack of discipline with the Jets and specifically the offensive coaching staff. I think that is totally valid, and I get why he's upset. I agree with you. Yeah, do your job, man. Like, I hate to say it that way, but if you're told to do this and you are under contract in that, then do your job. Like, it's as simple as that. But I don't have any issues. I don't have any issues with him telling about or talking about this either, because it's something, again, where he's specifically being asked. The entire podcast with Ryan Clark, he was not talking about the Jets. He mostly talked about the Chiefs. He mostly talked about himself. But when asked about the Jets, he's not someone, like, clearly he's not somebody. And this is, I got this vibe. I was able to go to Kansas City a couple days after the Super Bowl, and I talked to Mecole Hardman briefly while we were down there. And the vibe I get from him is he's a very talkative and funny guy. He's always cracking jokes. He's a loud person, right? That's not a bad thing at all. Like, good for him, man. Be yourself. But he's not someone who's going to hold back, clearly. So if he's asked specifically, and in that podcast, he seemed very friendly with Ryan Clark. They're getting along. He felt comfortable sharing exactly what he thought went down with the Jets. I have no issue with a player doing that. Of course, it's always important to remember that is one side of the story. That is Mecole Hardman's perspective of what happened. That is not the full perspective. That is not the Jets' perspective. Clearly, that's not Thomas Morstead's perspective. And nor is it Sauce Gardner. I want to talk about the
really quick. Here, one last thing before we move on to the whole to Spygate V2 here, or whatever. I guess playbook gate. Here's why Hardman's pissed. He may not say it directly. Here's why he's pissed. He just tanked his value. I don't care that he caught the game when he touched out in the Super Bowl. It sounds silly, but it's like a 2-yard out route. Like, that's not going. The fact that he did that is not going to influence anybody on the open market. And here's what Mecole Hardman is. He left to prove that he was not a product of Patrick Mahomes. This year, he proved he's probably a product of Patrick Mahomes because he left and couldn't get in not the lineup, excuse me. He couldn't get any snaps, and then he had to go back to Kansas City to have a role. Now, who's going to pay him? Because the Jets were 3-3, correct me if I'm wrong, when he got traded.
Yep, they were.
3-3. Okay. He makes it seem like, they were like the 0-6 Panthers at the time, and just everything was leaking coolant, and nobody had no idea what they're doing. Like, he made it seem like hell on earth for his role, at least. Now, if you're a team who's rebuilding, you're probably not going to sign Mecole Hardman because he's very outspoken, and he's probably going to go rip the coaching staff if they don't bend to his wishes in certain areas. And if you're a contender, he's just not good enough to make a difference. And the Chiefs might not even bring him back because the Chiefs are going to add probably 2 receivers, maybe 3. I don't think there's a role for Hardman right now. And I think he knows that.
I don't know. I don't think this is a scoop. I don't know if this is a scoop, whatever, but Mecole Hardman wants to re-sign with the Chiefs. He made that very clear at the event I was at. He straight up told me to my face, I want to re-sign with the Chiefs. He's like, it's a business. He doesn't know what's going to happen, but if it was his decision, he will re-sign with the Chiefs. I don't think he's really concerned about what his market value is. I think at this point, and another quote that he specifically said was, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I think he saw what it was like not playing with Patrick Mahomes, not being on the Chiefs. And he's like, I don't want to do that again. I want to just re-sign with the Chiefs. I do think he'll end up re-signing with the Chiefs in some capacity. I don't think it's going to be I don't think he's got a huge role with the team. They're probably going to add at wide receiver. They already let go of Marquez Valdez-Scantling, which we're not going to talk about probably now because we talked about it last week. But please, Joe Douglas, do not sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I beg you. But I do think that they'll add some receivers. I think they'll ultimately bring Hardman back, wide receiver 5, whatever he's going to be. But he wants to re-sign with the Chiefs. I know that for a fact. So I don't know if he's particularly concerned about his market value as much. But I don't know. One thing he should be concerned about, though, Mike, is this leak shit. Because this is wild. We talked for 25 minutes about the Hardman stuff, but the leak stuff is insane. So for those who don't know, who have been off Twitter or just not seen it,
aren't as eternally online as we are cursed to be.
Yeah, as you should be. If you don't know about this, that's probably a good thing. You're not terminally online, and that's a good thing. Sauce Gardner, in the midst of all of this, the back and forth between Hardman and Thomas Morstead, like right at the same time as that's going on, Sauce Gardner tweets out and deletes it a couple minutes later. A tweet that reads, "We ain't going to talk about how our offensive game plan got leaked versus the Eagles, though." And of course, the insinuation there and the implication, given the timing and the circumstances of this, is that relates to Mecole Hardman. Now, I'd like to point out that Mecole Hardman was traded 3 days after the Jets beat the Eagles. Do what you want with that information. I'm just throwing that out there. Of course, Sauce tweeting that and then deleting it made many believe that, and I'm not going to put words in Sauce Gardner's mouth, but the way I interpret that is he's saying that Mecole Hardman had something to do with the leaks, because he's not going to just randomly tweet that out while all of this is going on and have it be nothing to do with Mecole Hardman. At least that's my take on it. And this is furthered by the fact that Jets tight end Kenny Yeboah getting involved on Twitter again. This is the second time, Mike, as you pointed out before the show or whatever. He previously said the thing about Izzy Abanikanda, called us out, whatever. That was weird. But he responded to someone on Twitter, because he responded to the Morstead tweet, and then someone asked, hey, how Kenny, how you feel about Mecole? And he responds, he's tripping out. He ain't talk about his own work ethic and how the Georgia Eagles or game plan. Eagles.
That's what I've been saying. Like the first part, we talk about his work ethic. Like, yeah, I'm sure he was just Jerry Rice running hills for 4 hours every day in practice.
Yeah, obviously, it seems like there's the Jets players do not take what Hardman said kindly. They're not happy with what he said. But the second part about
it's
what
Boyer too. That the fact he went after him specifically, who everybody seems to love, I think that's what set everybody off.
Who? What'd you say?
I think Hardman going after Boyer specifically.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like everybody loved that. You could say what you want about Hackett and the Jets, but like everybody seems to like Boyer.
That's why it's not a surprise that Morstead and Yeboah are the guys that speak up, two special teams regulars. Yeboah, but the second part of what Yeboah is saying there, so the Georgia Eagles, that's a reference to the fact that the Eagles have a lot of Georgia players on their team. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean. There's a ton of them there. That defense is full of Georgia players. Yep, Keely Ringo. Of course, Mecole Hardman is an alumni of Georgia. He went to Georgia. Even if he didn't cross paths with any of those guys while he was there, he likely still has connections to the university, to the organization, to the school, whatever. And he probably talks to a lot of his fellow Georgia alumni. So Kenny Yeboah is kind of doubling down on what Sauce Gardner said and implying that Mecole Hardman had something to do with the Jets' offensive game plan getting leaked ahead of the Eagles game, which they won.
Sauce also just quoted he deleted it again, but he quoted the Kenny Yeboah tweet with a gif of a guy like, kind of
Who
like,
did?
told you so. Sauce did, but he deleted it again.
Sauce is the king of deleting tweets. Sauce deletes 80% of his tweets. And it's really funny because it doesn't go anywhere. Like, people are going to screenshot, man. Just don't tweet it. That's really funny. I didn't see that he did that. But yeah, that is now multiple Jets players who today, what we do know, the facts of what we do know is that the Jets' offensive game plan was apparently leaked ahead of their game against the Eagles. We didn't know that until today. That just got, I don't want to say reported, but it was outed by Sauce Gardner and Kenny Yeboah. And the implication from both of them is that former Jets wide receiver Mecole Hardman is behind those leaks. And it just so happened that 3 days after that game, after the leaked the game plan got out, Hardman gets traded to the Chiefs. That's what we know. That's the facts we know. Just a normal day in the Jets offseason. Just a normal day, Mike.
Me and Justin were talking about this before the show because I remember there was something where I think it was like Wake Forest in college. You remember this when like the announcer was leaking the playbook to might have been Louisville. It was one of them. I think it was like
what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking back to that. I'm like, because I think there was like some litigation with there. I'm like, is this illegal? Like, is a playbook like intellectual property of the Jets and then they gave it to somebody else unknowingly?
Probably. I think it should be. I'm not a legal expert, but I feel like they would classify as that. I'm so curious. Like, I have so many questions. Like, was this a situation where Hardman actually had the entire playbook and just like placed it or like
emailed it to him, like
emailed it to Nick Sirianni? Like, is that what happened here, or did he just like tell a few of his?
Dear Nick, hope this email finds you well. Here's our plays for week 6.
Here is Nathaniel Hackett's entire playbook. And then Nick Sirianni reads it and he's like, what the hell is this? I can't do anything with this. Is garbage. What is this?
This is just a picture of a monkey peeling a banana. This isn't even a play.
It's just like photos of Aaron Rodgers like modeling.
It's just links to YouTube videos of like Rodgers highlights.
Yeah, that's their entire.
I can't even click on this. You printed it out.
So I really want to know like what this is, right? I don't know if we're going to find out any info more or any more information, but maybe it's something as simple as Hardman was just texting his Georgia friends, like, whether it was Jalen Carter or whoever, Nolan Smith, he was just texting them some stuff about it. I don't know. Or if he actually leaked the entire offensive game plan to the Eagles. Of course, the other connection there would be is that the Chiefs and Eagles have some ties together, I guess, with Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce, whatever. But it's probably more so the fact that Hardman just knows a lot of the guys on that Eagles defense. So I don't know. I don't know what happened. It's an insane situation. The Hardman stuff just keeps getting crazier. Like, if he leaked the game plan, fuck this guy. Like, straight up fuck this guy.
While he's on the team, like,
yeah, like, obviously,
who knows? He may have had to, like, guys could have got hurt. He may have had to, like, play that game.
Yeah, maybe
he would have screwed himself.
Right. So I have no, like, I don't know if that's what happened. I don't know if he actually leaked it, but it certainly sounds like, and I would say this is what's happening. Sauce Gardner and Kenny Yeboah are essentially accusing Mecole Hardman of leaking the playbook. Whether that happened, I don't know, but that's what's happening.
That's a pretty big accusation to make with no proof, like absolutely no.
It
proof.
is. That's what makes it insane, dude. So
either everybody's completely lying, or there's something like there has to be something there. Maybe Hardman didn't. Maybe one of two things happened. Either Hardman leaked the game plan and they didn't use it, or the Eagles got the game plan somehow, but not with Hardman. Like, God, I just want my journalism instincts are kicking in. It's like I just want to know what happened. We're probably never going to know what happened, but
I'm gonna reach out to Thomas Morstead and be like, "Hey, man, what's the deal with this playbook thing? What's going on with that? You know anything?" No, but crazy situation. Really quick, I saw you answer this in the chat. I'll answer it here really quick because people were talking about this on Twitter a lot. Franco on YouTube said, "What's your take on Saleh not going to be at the combine?" So he is actually going to be at the combine. It was originally reported he was not. I don't know if he changed his mind or whatever, but he will be there, I believe, Saturday and Sunday. So he will be at the combine. Even if he wasn't, I don't care. Like, I don't care. A lot of coaches
doesn't go. Kyle Shanahan doesn't go.
Half the NFL's head coaches are not going to be at the combine this year, or at least they normally don't attend. Those coaches include Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Mike Tomlin, Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh. And
Harbaugh was there.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's there, but I don't think John Harbaugh's there.
No, John was, but
was he? Okay, well, yeah, whatever. But a lot of the top
extra coach, woohoo.
Sure, and a lot of the top coaches in the league, and even some of the not top coaches in the league, guys like Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is not going to be at the combine, at least by the last time I saw, and he's probably on the hot seat more than any coach this year. As are guys like not on the hot seat, but guys who are not going to be there. Newer coaches like Antonio Pierce, Gerard Mayo. A lot of coaches don't go to the combine. It is definitely anybody who's been to the combine will tell you it is not what you think it is. It's kind of basically just a big business meeting where you just have a couple of guys running some drills in the background. Like, that's basically what it is. It's more so making connections than actually evaluating prospects. The only important information you're really taking away as a coach from the combine is medical information. That is the most important thing.
Which, again, Saleh didn't even need to be there for.
Which you don't need to be there for. So that's why a lot of coaches in recent years have not been going. So I don't care if Saleh goes. He is going to go on Saturday and Sunday. Cool. Joe Douglas is already there. Jet scouts are going to be there. That's fine, man. But yeah, if Saleh wasn't going, I wouldn't care. Saleh is going. I still don't care. Whatever. If we are going to talk about Saleh and the coaching staff, another thing we can talk about before we get into, I think the meat of the show, I was going to say we should talk about the grades. And then we can get to the offensive line stuff afterwards. But the meat of the show, we'll talk about like fixing the Jets offensive line a little bit. Right now, let's talk about these NFLPA report cards that came out today, because the NFLPA, I don't know how many years they've been doing this, but they've been doing this for a few years now, where they release grades. It's essentially the players grade their own teams, and they grade them on a variety of different things, from coaching staff to owner to team facilities to medical staff to nutrition to everything, right? The Jets graded out very poorly, as one might imagine. I believe their top thing was nutrition. I think they were ranked 10th in nutrition.
They were 21st out of 32 teams in the league.
21st overall. Some of the lowest ratings, I believe Robert Saleh was 24th. He had a B grade, which isn't bad. Most coaches actually received pretty good grades. Although I will say that of the coaches who were fired this year, or of the coaches who weren't fired this year, Saleh was pretty much like second to last or something.
Like him, Matt Eberflus, who I thought was going to get fired.
Brandon Staley had a B. Arthur Smith had a C+.
McDaniels had a D, which was hilarious.
Belichick was low as well, which that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, so the Jets coaching staff did not rank well, and specifically the biggest gripe that people had with the Jets coaching staff, or I should say players, was that only 72% of players thought that Robert Saleh and the Jets coaching staff maximized their time or best utilized their time, which ranked, I think, like 28th or 29th. Other ratings that were low, I believe, were the training staff. That was low. Once again, should not be a
Treatment of
surprise.
families D-. Like it was
Yeah,
higher numerically, but like grade wise, they got a D- for the families. Because there
yeah,
were some
that
F
was pretty
minuses in
crazy.
there.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I don't think there's any excuse for a team not treating families well like that.
The
Get
Chiefs
your shit
being
together.
dead last and everything almost was stunning to me.
That was also surprising. Yeah, here it is. So treatment of families was D-. Food cafeteria was a C-. That was 25th. Training room was 27. Training staff was 29.
This is one thing I don't get. How is food and cafeteria C- and nutrition B+?
I don't know. Well, because I guess the
Are they
nutrition
telling them not to eat the food? Is that why they're good?
it's the nutritionist dietitian was B+. That was 10th. But the food, so I guess the food in the facilities is bad, but the actual nutritionist and dietitians that they have are good.
You will eat this nutritious slop. I swear it works.
Well, it's basically like, don't eat the cafeteria food. We got you with our own shit. The cafeteria food sucks. That's how I read that. Weight room was pretty bad. Strength coaches were bad. Ownership was 20th. So not the worst, but not great. Yeah. So
I hate Woody Johnson, but like, man, he tried this year, man. Like he tried.
Yeah.
Didn't work because Rodgers got hurt, but he tried.
It was wild that the worst ranked owner was Clark Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs, which I hate saying his name. I don't want to say it again, but
maybe we need a worse owner. Maybe that'll be the key.
I don't know. But yeah, I'm not surprised by any of these report card grades. I do believe that the Jets got worse overall from what they were last year in pretty much every category, which it shouldn't be a surprise. Like I'm not particularly, I don't want to say I'm not particularly high on the current regime, but there are a lot of question marks out there about the current regime. So I think it's fair that people in the organization have question marks as well. Obviously, winning fixes everything. So if you're winning, your head coach is probably going to be seen in a higher light, in a better light, and is going to be ranked higher. I think that was pretty consistent with the rankings, that the coaches of losing teams, they're ranked lower. The players are going to respect their coaches more if they're on winning teams and they're winning games. So yeah.
Rob Serafinowicz has a good point, though. Grades for food include if 3 meals are provided if they're free. Because I remember that the Bengals only did that on Wednesdays.
The Bengals were like really bad in this as well.
I think it was like the Bengals didn't have an indoor practice facility, and then they got shamed into it because the high school nearby them got one. They're like, we're the Bengals, like we need one.
Bengals ownership sucks. Like that is. But
even going back, I mean, Paul Brown was a good owner. Mike Brown, the son, isn't. But like even Paul was like super cheap. They've always been cheap.
Somebody pointed this out that a lot of the top owner rankings, almost every one of the top owner rankings, was from an owner that purchased the team and not inherited it. Obviously, Woody Johnson purchased it. He was actually like,
well, the Commanders were. I guess that's still residual Snyder runoff.
Yeah, that's from last year. Essentially, the Commanders are still from that. But Woody was like second worst or third worst amongst the like purchased owners. So majority of the ones that were inherited were the bottom ones, which Clark Hunt, other guys like that.
Bidwell's in Arizona, they got really bad ones. Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know if you have anything to say about the report card stuff, Mike. I'm not particularly surprised by it. It honestly, it blends into a lot of stuff Mecole Hardman was saying and others have said about the current state of the Jets organization and the Jets regime and the Jets coaching staff. It's not promising.
Honestly, it's better than I thought it would be. Like, think about what a nightmare last year was. The fact Robert Saleh got a B, like in that year, where if you didn't like watch the Jets and you only consumed like the way Jets were being talked about, like national media wise, you would have thought that was like beneath an F. What Robert Saleh and what that locker room was like you would have thought it was just hell on earth. I guess he held it together enough to. Like again, Rodgers is healthy. They win 11 games. You think he's probably in the A range? I probably do. You think he's a B? I don't.
I would be very interested to see what the split is in those grades between defensive players and offensive players, because those defensive players will die for Robert Saleh.
Oh, they love him.
They will go to war for Saleh. I don't think any starter on that entire Jets defense, or maybe any player, is rating him below an A. So the fact that he's a B makes me think the offensive guys didn't particularly rate him that high. I wonder if Mecole Hardman was asked about Robert Saleh and what he would have put. Or what would he put about Brant Boyer? But yeah, I would wonder what the split is there. Like, how does Alan Lazard feel about Robert Saleh versus how does Quincy Williams feel about Robert Saleh? I imagine their grades are going to be very different. But yeah, ultimately, I'm not particularly surprised, and I don't think there's any huge takeaways from this that I have that are anything new per se.
Not particularly. It's just they're almost the definition of mediocrity almost. Like there's something appealing and very Jets about coming like 4th or 5th in a mediocrity contest among other NFL teams, but
I would say they're the definition of a below average regime right now. And I think that in pretty much every possible way. That doesn't mean they can't climb. Winning solves
again,
everything.
it's a nice social experiment. Like Aaron Rodgers wins 3 extra games, like the Atlanta game and the Raiders game and stuff like that. Probably the coaching staff is in the A's. Maybe even the food's higher because you're probably in a better mood. Maybe the travel's higher. Like, if nothing else changes, the Hardman thing, the this, the that, if Aaron Rodgers plays and they win 10 games, even if they miss the playoffs, I guarantee you they're like maybe 15, 14, not 21.
Probably.
Like it'd be a fascinating like social experiment. Like compare them last year and this year. Don't make any changes, Woody Johnson, to anything else. Just last year, this year. If they win more, I guarantee everybody's feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, winning solves everything, as does a good quarterback. Winning solves everything, and then a good quarterback solves or leads to wins. So if you have a good quarterback, you're going to win more games, and if you're winning more games, you're going to rank more highly. The Dolphins, by the way, they were number 1. They didn't. Dude, this is actually crazy. I'm looking at their full rankings now. Outside of head coach, which was still an A, by the way, they didn't rank lower than 3rd in any single category. That's absurd.
J.C. Treader even said, who's the president of the union, he said them and the Vikings were like, I think the Vikings were like that too, where they're like in their own tier.
That is wild.
Like you could either win in South Beach or
that's what I was going to say.
In Florham Park, New Jersey. Okay.
I do wonder how much of that is players just being happy that they're in Miami. Although I guess Minneapolis is, it's not like that's not.
Be careful. You might upset some people up in there.
I got nothing against Minneapolis, but I'm
banned from Culver's.
In terms of ideal places that people want to live, usually people aren't going to say Minneapolis. I'm sure it's a wonderful city with great people, but I feel that's not what people are going to say. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about the report card.
Wasn't the Steelers in the bottom 5? That was surprising.
They were. The Steelers were very low, and they're like a very well-respected organization.
Blue blood, the Roonies, the Steelers, the standard is the standard. Like, that's
Tomlin was ranked. I think Tomlin was ranked high, which doesn't surprise me. But
probably, how old are the Roonies still? Aren't they? I think it's the son now, right? It's not like some 90-year-old cheapskate.
Yeah,
like that. Players hate like when the facilities aren't good. I think is one of the big. Like stuff that we don't think as fans is huge, but like I remember too, the Bucks had like a MRSA outbreak, and that was like a big thing for them. Like, and people didn't play for the Bucks for a while. Like,
I think
those facilities like that can make or break you.
I wonder if the same cafeteria people that they had when they made the Denzel Mims bad salmon are still there.
The
infamous salmon that gave Denzel Mims food poisoning and derailed his entire career. That's the infamous salmon. I wonder if it's the same cafeteria.
Well, now he's recovered and obviously getting 1,000 yards wherever he goes. So yeah, that's.
I saw someone on Twitter say today that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is Denzel Mims if Denzel Mims never ate the bad salmon.
Hey, that would have at least provided some value as a 2nd-round pick.
Right. I don't think that's a bad take by any means at all.
At least Marquez Valdes-Scantling at least had some pretty good plays.
Sure. But again, that's another reason why I don't really particularly want MVS. But anyway, the Jets need to fix their offensive line, Mike.
Yes. Let's actually talk some football on this football podcast.
Yeah. Let's stop talking drama. Let's stop talking coaching staff, malpractice, whatever you want to talk. Let's talk about how the Jets are going to fix their
the lunch lady from The Simpsons just like slopping a thing of baked beans on a tin tray like you're at Howard Johnson or something.
We don't need to discuss that. We don't need to talk about that. We want to talk about the offensive line because it's the biggest priority for the offseason. We've talked about it a lot, obviously. It's very clear that the Jets need to fix their O-line, and it is even more clear after the team decided to release Laken Tomlinson on Monday night. I was a little surprised that
I was almost stunned, honestly.
I wasn't stunned, but I was surprised they did it. I think it's the correct move, and I'm glad that they did it. I just think they would. I didn't think they would do it. I think it shows that they learned from mistakes that they made last year because there were a few guys. I mean, Carl Lawson being number 1, obvious, and I was wrong about this in hindsight, of course, but that's somebody you could have saved $15 million by cutting, and they did not do it. There were a couple of players they probably should have cut bait with last offseason. They didn't because they were like, whatever their excuses were, whatever, good locker room guy, whatever. Laken Tomlinson kind of fit in that same boat. Durable dude, has played all 34 games during his time with the Jets. Extremely well-liked and well-respected leader in that locker room. Unfortunately, he was bad. He was a bad football player. He did not live up to his contract by any means. He led all guards this past season with 51 pressures allowed. I'm pretty sure there was only one other guard that allowed more than 41 pressures, and he allowed 51. he was very bad. And obviously a product of that is he played all 17 games. Sure, he was healthy, but if you're healthy, it doesn't like being healthy doesn't matter if you're not good. And unfortunately, he was just not good. They ate a good amount of dead cap by releasing him, but they did save over $8 million in the process. Also, that means that they now have to fill essentially 3 offensive line positions this offseason. They need realistically 3 new starters. The only guys that are penciled into starting roles next year are Joe Tippmann and Elijah Vera-Tucker, who is, of course, coming off a torn Achilles and has not played more than 7 games in a season since his rookie year.
And they don't even know what position he's going to play.
And they don't know what position he's going to play. So
I don't know what position Tippmann's going to play. He could play center or guard.
100%. And I think that kind of plays into some of the stuff that I'm going to say. But I have my whole what I want the Jets to do, like my step-by-step game plan for how I should fix it. But I want to hear what you have to say first, Mike, if you have your stuff ready.
Well,
how are you going to fix the Jets offensive line? You are given an opportunity. You are Joe Douglas. What do you do?
Well, first on Laken, I'm actually, I want to say stunned because I held out hope on Laken for probably longer than most. Just because he was a Pro Bowler at San Francisco, and even in the years when he wasn't a Pro Bowler, he was really good. Now, obviously, we always make a point of saying when you play along bad offensive line, even if you're good, sometimes you give up. Like Joe Thomas with the Browns would sometimes give up some sacks. They're like, well, he's really good, but everybody else is not.
Right.
Like, so that I'd always say, you know what? Like, I still think it's in there. Like, because he was good in San Francisco. It's the same scheme, same coaches. Like, there's no way he just forgot. And maybe he did, or maybe it's just age. I think he's 32 now. Like,
maybe Trent Williams is that good.
Maybe Trent Williams is that good, where he's basically 2 offensive linemen making up for 1.5 who can make up for Laken Tomlinson. I think that's pretty much confirmed now. But I was just stunned because I didn't think the Jets in such a make or break year would willingly say we need to get at minimum 3 new starters and then maybe shift the other 2 we have around. Because if you look at left tackle right now, Mekhi Becton's not coming back. That's wide open. Laken Tomlinson's gone. Left guard's wide open. Tippmann is your center, yeah, but if you find a really good center in the draft or free agency, you don't want to maybe kick him to guard where he was also good. Vera-Tucker was a guard, then he's a tackle, then he's left side, right side. Like, he could be a right tackle, he could be a right guard. I don't know where Vera-Tucker is going to be.
He could be left tackle. There's a non-zero chance Elijah Vera-Tucker is your week 1 starting left tackle. I don't think that happens, but it's Joe Douglas specifically said today when he was talking at his press conference that ABT gives them versatility at 4 different positions. That's left. He's not talking center. He's talking left tackle. So that's at least a possibility. I don't think it's the likely option, but it's possible.
So if I had my druthers, which I feel bad for Carter Warren too, because I liked him as a prospect, and I feel like even though he has a good chance to, like normally a 4th round pick could end up being maybe a spot starter in year 2 kind of thing. That's kind of a natural progression that a lot of guys can make. I feel sad for him because it really doesn't feel like he has a legitimate chance to start this year.
Nor should he. Like, I don't think he should.
Well, then you burned a 4th round pick on a guy who's,
No, you're just not relying on a guy who was, look, I like Carter Warren. I hope he can be good, but he wasn't good last year. Like, he was a rookie. He was rookie who missed most of the summer. Like, you obviously have to project development with him, but there was a lot of Carter Warren discourse on Twitter this week. Like, I have zero desire to see him as a starting player in 2024, or at least somebody that you are going into the year relying on him, or at least asking him to compete for a starting job. I don't think he showed anything last year that shows me he's ready for that step. I don't even think he should be your 3rd tackle. I think he should be your 4th tackle at best right now, given what we've seen from him already. And that's what it is. That's the product of being on a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl.
The tough part is I think you're going to probably need to sign 2 veteran linemen in free agency. And there are guys out there, guard specifically. This is a good guard class in free agency. Kevin Zeitler, he could leave Baltimore because they had a chance to sign a contract with him like they did with Nelson Aguilar. They didn't. So he's out there. Ronnie Stanley could also be a cap casualty. Watch that. But Zeitler's a good fit. Jonah Jackson in Detroit. Like, there's a lot of good guards out there specifically. I think you need 1. I think that'll at least satisfy me. If you get 1, maybe put him at right guard. I think AVT, in my opinion, is probably going to be your right tackle. And that might complicate the draft because, of course, Taliesin Fuaga is the guy that gets mocked to the Jets a lot, and he's like a pure right tackle. So you may have to move AVT again if you take Fuaga. So that's tough. But if I could just like snap my fingers and get the ideal offensive line, I think it's AVT at right tackle, Tippmann at center, some veteran at right guard. I don't know who it is, but some veteran. And I think, honestly, you may need to spend your 3rd round pick or get a 2nd veteran to be your left guard because I don't want to start 2 rookies on my left side of Aaron Rodgers. If you want to get a guy like a Joe Alt or an Olu Fashanu to be your franchise left tackle, No qualms with that. I actually am supportive of that, even though Alt might be a little too rich for the Jets. Fashanu wasn't as good this year with Penn State as he was last year. One of those two, if they last to 10, I feel like you got to take him. Maybe a Mary's Mimsby blows up the combine, but I feel like those two, if I could just wave a magic wand, one of them's the left tackle. You get 2 new guards, and then Tippmann and Vera Tucker, and then offensive line is set. And you don't have to pay top dollar necessarily in that. Like, I don't need the Great Wall of Dallas. Like, I don't want you to just neglect the receivers or the secondary because you built this, you get everybody at offensive line. You could have maybe an okay left guard or an okay right guard, but you need to get the tackle sorted out first. And I think the best plan is AVT right tackle, Fashanu Alt left tackle.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I do think the Jets will sign 2 veteran offensive linemen in free agency. I don't think it'd be wise at all to go into the draft needing to fill 2 holes 2 starting holes on the offensive line. Even 1 is a lot to ask because you're already pigeonholing yourself. So here's my game plan, Mike. I wrote this down and it's a few steps. This is, if I was Joe Douglas, here's what I would try to do to fix this Jets offensive line. And this is, I think, a pretty I don't want to say comprehensive, but it is a good plan. And I think you're investing a lot, but
of course it's a good plan. I thought of it.
Exactly. But you need to invest a lot. You need to invest a lot in the offensive line. First thing I'm doing is I'm planning to move Elijah Vera Tucker to tackle. The expectation is probably right tackle, but leaving open the idea that it could in some world be left tackle. I'm going to throw
Is
that
it based on draft position? Like, is it, we get Fashanu, sticks at right tackle, Fuaga, he goes to left?
Sure. I'm not deciding where AVT is playing until after the draft. That's when I make my decision to see. And that's fine. I have no issue. The Jets basically said that today. They're also not deciding on his 5th-year option. I don't hate that they're not doing that yet. Wait and see. He
gets hurt all the time. How could you?
Right. Wait and see how stuff plays out. See how he's progressing in his recovery from the Achilles injury. I don't have any issue with that. They got to make a decision by May. But you can wait until after free agency and maybe even after the draft if you want to. So I have no issue with that. But I'm planning internally to move AVT to tackle and keep him there because I think he held his own there. And like you said, this is a really, really good guard class. This is one of the best guard classes that I can remember in recent years because it's not just not that Kevin Zeitler, he's older, but he's still really good. But it's not just older guys like a Zeitler. There are a lot of young guards looking for second contracts who are good players, who are genuinely good players. Robert Hunt from Miami, Mike Onwenu, who's, he's a tackle guard. He could play both. He played right tackle mostly last year, played guard the year before with the Patriots.
He's the Mekhi Becton of guards, I think is a good way to put him.
Why? He hasn't been hurt, has he?
He's big.
Oh, yeah, but he hasn't had the injury. He hasn't had the injury issues.
My favorite Onwenu story, he was at the Shrine Bowl. I have a side profile piece of Mike Onwenu because I was taking a picture of him for Twitter, and that's a big dude. That's a big lad.
Yeah, he's a big dude. But he hasn't got the same injury history that Becton does. He's expected to be maybe the most coveted offensive lineman on the market. One of them for sure, because he's been very good. He has the versatility to play guard and tackle. Another guy, Kevin Dotson, former Steeler who went to the Rams last year and was PFF's 2nd highest graded guard in football. Another guy looking for his 2nd contract. There's also, if we're talking non-guards, a guy like Tyler Biadasz coming from Dallas is extremely intriguing to me. If you want to sign him and move Tippmann to guard, all for that. Biadasz was a Pro Bowler last year, I believe. Good player in that Dallas offensive line. Absolutely. All for if you can, because Biadasz probably will be a little cheaper than somebody like Onwenu or even a Hunt. So I would be all for that. There's a lot of guys who I think they are in the market for it that they can sign because it's a very good guard class. So I say target one of those guys, sign one of those guys that I just said. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to sign another guard. You have to sign another veteran offensive lineman. Unfortunately, you probably can't sign 2 guys in that same tier because that's going to be a lot of money. So you sign a guy in the middle tier, the middle to lower tier, somebody who you think you can get for a pretty affordable contract that you can hit on and be at least average starter. A couple of guys I have in that tier. Aaron Brewer makes a ton of sense from the Titans.
He was a center, I think you'd have to move him, right?
He was a center. He also has played guard, though, so he can play both. He played guard earlier in his career. He started at center last year. He can do both. Whether you want him at center or you want Tippmann at center, that's fine. Both of them can do both. I don't have any issues with that. Brewer comes from the Titans, has a lot of experience with this Titans coaching staff, which a lot of them are now in the Jets.
Titans coaching staff.
Yeah, of course he crossed paths with Keith Carter. I think of all the offensive
linemen. So that means he's not coming to the Jets because every lineman hates him. So
I know. Well, it's weird. We say that, but also look at who. Obviously Keith Carter they had one off season with him, but They went out and they brought in Roger Saffold, Dennis Kelly, and Xavier Newman, all three of which are offensive linemen who were with Keith Carter in Tennessee.
And Newman was the most productive out of them. Imagine that.
He's the only one who played.
Yeah.
He's the only one who actually played.
Roger Saffold doesn't even exist. He's not a real person.
Yeah, and I'm not sure Dennis Kelly does. I think Dennis Kelly was elevated or was promoted to the active roster for like a game, and that was it. So there's already a track record with them bringing over former Titans offensive lineman. I would not be surprised if Brewer is a target for the Jets, and I'm fine with that as him, with him as like a mid-tier target. He should not be your biggest offensive line addition you make, but I'm cool with him as a mid-tier target. Other guys I put in that tier, Greg Van Roten.
Nah.
I'm just going to throw it out there. He was really good last year with the Raiders. If you want to bring him back,
camera really quick.
I'm just saying, I know he was bad with the Jets, and I know he is partially responsible for Mekhi Becton's career derailing, but he was really good last year. So as a mid-tier option, if you could sign Greg Van Roten for like 1 year, $4 million, sure.
If you want a guy who's cheap like that, John Simpson in Baltimore could be a good.
John Simpson in Baltimore is another guy who was, he was not very good with the Raiders, was not a very good player with them, goes to Baltimore and was a pretty solid starting guard last year.
I think he led all guards in penalties, though, I believe. So,
well, Donovan Smith's also interested in the Jets, too. So there's that. If we're talking penalties.
He's going to go after Hardman just read him the riot act in Kansas City about the Jets? Okay.
A couple other guys that I put in that tier. A popular trade deadline candidate, Ezra Cleveland, is a free agent. Again, not my ideal starting guard, but it's a low tier guy. He's still young. You could probably get him for pretty cheap. And another guy, Damian Lewis from Seattle. Also a guy who's been very durable for the most part throughout his career. His looking for a second contract, is still pretty young, but he's not going to be in the same tier as like an Onwenu, a Hunt, even a Dotson who's coming off a career year. I think you sign one of the top guys and you sign a mid-tier guy. Both of them are probably going to be interior guys unless you sign Mike. The only way AVT I'm not moving to tackle is if you sign Mike Onwenu, and then he could probably play right tackle. But I think his market is going to be so much that I don't know if they can realistically compete with that and fill their other holes. So that's my plan there. You go into the draft and you draft your left tackle. Now, that being said, it's no guarantee that you are going to be able to draft a left tackle at 10. I understand that. So what I would love is if the Jets also were like, you know what? Hey, David Bakhtiari, you were released. You don't have much of a market. You want to sign in the Jets for 1 year, $2 million, play with your buddy Aaron Rodgers? You're not guaranteed a starting job, but you are our left tackle right now, and you can compete with whoever we draft potentially at number 10. You have now a contingency plan at left tackle so that you're not forcing yourself to have to draft a left tackle at 10. You can go into the year with Bakhtiari maybe competing with whoever for a starting job, maybe not the 10th overall pick. You have at least some sort of contingency plan. I think that is probably the best plan that the Jets can have. Maybe you also add another guy like a Yosh Nijman or whoever, right? Like another swing tackle, or you add some extra guard depth. You re-sign Connor McGovern. I would love that. That is how I would fix the Jets offensive line. That is my plan. Mike, do you have any objections with my plan?
I mean, I just don't like Bakhtiari. Just the idea again of Aaron Rodgers declining buddy,
but I
this
think
one will be different. None of the other ones work, but this one will work.
But the thing is, you're hopefully not relying on him.
Well, hopefully we're relying on Randall Cobb.
Sure, but I agree, and they shouldn't have. But
why wouldn't they do it? I guess why wouldn't they do it again? I guess.
Do you think okay, well, I have an issue if they sign Bakhtiari and guarantee him the starting left tackle job. I am saying in my fictional plan that is not what happens.
I mean, that'd be fine if it works, but let's say, because again, he's a rookie. There's going to be rookie struggles in camp. You don't think Hackett and Rodgers are going to get together and be like, yeah, we should probably start David over Olu Fashanu or whoever.
And if he starts and plays well, cool. I mean, the issue with Bakhtiari isn't performance; it's health. That's the issue with him. If he's on the field, he's played well when he's been on the field.
Right. It's just he's never on the field.
There's been no decline in his play. Now that could be coming at this point. He's he has half a knee left, but there's been no decline in his play in his play on the field. So when he's healthy, that's fine. I just think it's smart to have that contingency plan going into the draft, because you can't just pigeonhole yourself into being like, we have to draft a tackle at 10. You can't do that.
You could always trade down too. There are left tackles, quote unquote.
Sure.
Because this is a deep ass tackle draft too.
Right.
Let's say Fashanu and Alt, they're out there, and then Fuaga and Latham. I'm still not sure which. I think it's Latham.
I think it's Latham, J.C. Latham.
J.C. Latham is a right tackle. If you don't want to get either of them, why not just try and go down maybe into the 20s and then say, hey, we'll take a Tyler Guyton or somebody like that, or we'll take who's a dude for Arizona, a Mary Mims or Jordan Morgan or something like that.
Troy Fatano as well. Wasn't he a left tackle at Washington?
He is, but I think some people think he might kick inside, but like I guess maybe that'd be a good pick then because you could try him at both. But
Tony in chat says Bakhtiari would get more than $2 million if he's released by the Packers. One, I mean, he's definitely going to be released by the Packers. That's for sure. I don't think he's going to have a huge market. He's played one game in 2 of the last 3 seasons. He has half a knee left. That also being said, you don't think
he's 32.
He's 32. He's played in one game 2 of the last 3 seasons. I'm not saying his market value is $2 million. I'm saying to sign with the Jets and do them a favor and play with Aaron Rodgers. I could see a scenario where he takes $2 million. Absolutely.
Or at least he takes $2 million instead of a 1-year $3 million deal with another contender.
Sure. Or maybe it's incentives. Maybe it's 1 year, he counts $2 million against the cap and he can go up to like $8 million in incentives. Something like that. You could make it work. You could absolutely get David Bakhtiari for a very small cap hit to play for the Jets. I'm sure he would be all for that. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers would be all for that. I don't think that would be an issue. I don't foresee that being an issue. It's not that Bakhtiari is worth $2 million. That's not what I'm saying. I think there are ways you can get his cap hit to be worth that and for him to take a discount to play with his buddy Aaron Rodgers. I think that's totally feasible.
And with that, I think we're ready to wrap up here. Thank you for tuning into the Jet Press podcast. This was a fun episode. Kind of got a little wild early on because Mecole Hardman decided to come out with all piss and vinegar and defecate on the New York Jets for no reason because he won a Super Bowl and I think he's talked more about the Jets than the Chiefs since he won the Super Bowl.
That's not true. You got to listen to those podcasts. He's talking about the Chiefs most of the time. He just the stuff that gets aggregated is the stuff he's saying about the Jets.
Yeah,
I'm gonna defend Mecole Hardman.
No, you're not. You want me to go into the rant again? I could do that.
No. Just rewind.
Keep in mind, I liked the signing more than you did when it happened. Maybe that's why I feel betrayed. I was big on Mecole.
I do find it really funny, really quick, that I've been very vocal against not wanting MVS this offseason, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and it's been a very different reaction from Jets fans to when I said I didn't want Allen Lazard. Because when I said I didn't want Allen Lazard, people were like, oh, what are you talking about? He's really good. He's better than Corey Davis, all this stuff. No one's saying that now about Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
I was a big Lazard supporter too. That the fall off was shocking.
It was shocking.
Nobody could have expected that.
Him and Tomlinson are both like in the same boat of like, I can't believe they were as bad as they were with the Jets.
Tomlinson at least, I feel like Tomlinson at least started off okay and then gradually, you're like, all right, he'll get better though, right? And then he just kept going down and down and down. Like Lazard never even took off.
Yeah, man. But
so is life with the Jets.
It has been a wild day, and I'm very interested to see if anything else comes about. Those leaked stuff, all the stuff with Kenny Yeboah and Sauce Gardner, because that is the craziest shit to me, and I find that so funny and hilarious. Jets own the offseason, man. This is our time. Whether it's good or bad, they're always in the news in the offseason.
Just can't keep us out of their mouths. So thank you for watching on YouTube. We'll be back next Wednesday as usual. We're going to really ramp up the draft stuff with that approaching. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, YouTube at the Jet Press. Likes on the stream are very big. If you go to like Apple, Google, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you get your podcast, good reviews on the podcast servers. That really helps get us up those charts. Justin, do you have anything else to say now that my screed against House Hardman is complete?
We are quickly approaching free agency, my friend.
Yes.
We have 1 week. Basically, our next week's show is our last show before free agency, which that's crazy because legal tampering starts on the 11th. Next week's show is the 6th. So I don't know what we're going to do on the 13th. We'll have to see if we're going to do a show that day because that is the literal start of free agency. In fact, it starts at, I believe, 4 p.m. So we'll have to discuss that. I don't know if we're going to do a show then. But anyway, until then, until all the next Jets craziness comes out, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter at bymikeluciano. Follow me on Twitter at justintfried. Follow Jet Press on the Jet Press. Download Jet Press Podcast wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube, TikTok. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. You guys know what to do. God, I'm going through that so quick. Dude, that was great. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I've been Justin Fried. Mike Luciano. We will see you guys next week.
See you guys next week.